And there you are in a picture. I mean, the sign says, "Thank God for Katrina."
Yeah.
How old, you're referring to Hurricane Katrina, the mass loss of life
Yeah.
and the destruction of that storm.
Yeah.
Your church linked to homosexuality.
Yeah, so my family sees, they believe in predestination. So my family would quote this passage that says, where God says, "I set before you this day a blessing and a blessing if you obey me, and a curse if you won't." So my family took that to mean anything bad that happened in the world was the direct result of that from the hand of God. And so we had a duty to celebrate it because everything God does is by definition good and righteous.
So you were telling the audience at home and here how you were now on Twitter, 2009, and you're running into people who are challenging what you've been told your entire life, and some of it is starting to click to you.
Right, exactly. And so to find this internal inconsistency, Westboro is the ideology is a very closed system. So any arguments that would cause you to doubt, the primary things that we believe, which was that the Bible was the literal and infallible word of God, and that Westboro had the only true interpretation of it, and that everyone else was wrong. Any argument that came in from the outside of that, I couldn't hear it. We had all these Bible verses to just dismiss those things. But the fact that it was an internal inconsistency, that for me was this thread that began to unravel the rest of it.
So slowly strangers start to, again, help you change the way you've been raised to think.
Right.
One of them was someone you eventually fell in love with.
Exactly, yeah. So my husband, Chad, he is not, so David's arguments were very theological and very, very rational.
David is the person who reached out to you initially, the
Exactly,
stranger.
and actually, initially on Twitter. Then my husband saw, some news article about the church and sent me a mean tweet, and I responded.
He wasn't your husband at the time.
No, I'm sorry. No. He was an anonymous stranger. He was completely anonymous for the first 7 months that we were communicating on Twitter and then also on Words with Friends later. But so his arguments initially, he was trying to understand where the church was coming from, and I was throwing all these Bible verses at him. And his response would be, he would go and look up the verse and say, yeah, I see that these verses are here, but particularly he had a problem with the funeral protests. And he would be constantly forcing me to think about the effect that we were having on the families. He would constantly push me to, but what about the families? And for me, that was, we had learned to totally dismiss other people's feelings. We literally had a sign, again, that said, God hates your feelings. Any thought or feeling you had that went against Westboro's ideology was a thought or feeling against God himself.
Megan, as you told us, you fell in love eventually with someone that you met online who was a part of this evolution. You're now a mom. What do you teach your child? What do you believe now?
I believe in people. I believe in the power of human connection to change hearts and minds. I believe in grace, and I believe in hope.
Where do you stand on same-sex marriage?
I'm absolutely for it. Love is love.